We were driving to a family reunion when I suddenly knew it was a trap. I told my husband, "Turn the car around right now." He trusted me, and that choice saved our lives. But my revenge began the moment I realized my own son had set us up. "Turn the car around, Mark, right now." My voice came out so sharp that even I barely recognized it. 1 second I was staring through the windshield at the long country road leading to my son's house for our family reunion, and the next, every bit of color drained from my face. My hands went cold. My heart started pounding so hard it felt like it was trying to break out of my chest. My husband glanced at me, confused, then looked back at the road. "Evelyn, what is it?" "Please," I whispered, then louder, "turn the car around now." He had been married to me for 38 years. Long enough to know when I was simply upset and when I was truly afraid. He did not argue again. He gripped the steering wheel, checked behind us and made a quick turn onto the narrow shoulder. Gravel snapped under the tires. My breathing came fast and shallow as our car pointed away from the reunion, away from the house where our son Daniel had promised there would be laughter, music, barbecue, balloons for the grandchildren, and one big happy day for the family. But I knew better now. Because just seconds earlier I had seen something that turned my blood to ice. A black pickup truck sat hidden behind a row of trees near the end of Daniel's driveway where no guest would park. 2 men were standing beside it. They were not carrying food trays or folding chairs. They were watching the road, watching our car, and one of them had lifted his phone to his ear the moment he saw us coming. And then my own son had stepped out onto the porch, looked straight toward our car, and did not smile. Why would a mother have to run from her own child, and what terrible thing was waiting for us if we had kept driving? My name is Evelyn Carter. I am 66 years old, a mother of 2, a grandmother of 4, and until that day I believed the worst pain a child could give you was coldness. I had no idea a son could do something that would make his own mother fear for her life. As Mark drove faster down the road, he kept glancing at me. "Evie, talk to me." I turned in my seat and looked out the back window. No one was following us yet, but that did not calm me. My chest still felt tight. "Don't go to the house," I said. "Don't stop anywhere near here, just drive." He nodded. Okay, that was the kind of man Mark was, steady, quiet. The sort of husband who did not need every answer right away. Still I could feel his worry filling the car. We drove in silence for almost 5 minutes before he pulled into an old gas station with a faded blue sign and a small diner attached to it. It was the kind of place truckers stopped for coffee. A few people stood near the pumps. An elderly woman was watering flowers by the diner door. Safe enough, I thought. Safe enough for a moment. Mark parked beside the building, and turned off the engine. Now he looked straight at me. "Tell me everything." I opened my mouth, but for a second no words came out. My throat felt dry. I reached for the bottle of water in the cup holder, unscrewed the cap with shaking fingers and took a sip. "I saw Daniel," I said. He frowned. "Well, of course you did. We were going to his house." "No," I said, "I saw his face." That made Mark go still. There are some things you only understand after building a life with someone. A stranger would not know what I meant, but Mark did. He knew I was talking about the look in our son's eyes. Daniel had my dark hair and Mark's strong jaw. As a boy he had the brightest grin in the world. When he was 7 he used to run to the door every evening shouting, "Dad's home!" When he was 10, he once cried for an hour because he found a baby bird on the sidewalk and wanted to save it. When he was 16 he started changing, little by little. He lied more, he laughed less. He became secretive, proud, easily angry. But even then, even through all of that, I could still usually find a little softness in his face. Not today. Today when he stepped onto that porch and looked at our car, his expression was hard, flat, almost waiting. Like he knew exactly what was about to happen. Mark leaned back slowly. "What else did you see?" "The truck, the men," I swallowed. They were hiding Mark, they were not guests. And Daniel looked at them before he looked at us. Mark's brows pulled together. "You're sure?" "Yes," I gripped his arm. And then one of those men lifted his phone. It felt wrong. Every part of me said it was wrong. He looked through the windshield at the empty road. Could it be some kind of work thing? Maybe Daniel hired help for the party. I wanted that to be true. I wanted it more than anything. But deep inside, I already knew the answer. "You didn't see his face," I said quietly. That was not a son waiting for his parents. That was a man waiting for something to begin. Mark exhaled slowly and rubbed his chin. "Then we call the police." The words should have comforted me. Instead they made my stomach twist. Because if we called the police, then I would have to explain the thing I had stayed silent about for 3 months. And silence, I was beginning to understand, is often where trouble grows. I looked down at my wedding ring. My hands had stopped shaking a little, but only a little. "There's something I should have told you," I said. Mark's face changed at once, not angry, just alert. "What is it?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed in my purse. "Daniel." My whole body stiffened. Mark looked at the screen, then back at me. "Don't answer if you don't want to." But I already knew I needed to hear his voice. I pressed accept and put the phone on speaker. "Mom," Daniel's voice came out warm, smooth, almost cheerful, too cheerful. "Where are you guys?" "Everybody's here." Everybody. That word sent a chill through me, because I was no longer sure who everybody really meant. I tried to keep my voice steady. "We had to stop for gas." There was a tiny pause, tiny but there. "That's strange," he said. "Dad filled the tank before you left." Mark's eyes lifted to mine. I said nothing. Daniel laughed softly. "Mom, are you okay? You sound nervous." I looked at the diner window at my own reflection, pale and frightened, and suddenly I remembered another phone call. Late at night, 3 months ago, Daniel whispering, talking about money, talking about pressure, talking about doing something just once to fix everything. At the time I had told myself I must have misunderstood. I wanted to believe I misunderstood. A mother can lie to herself when the truth hurts too much. Now I knew I had hurt him clearly. "Mom," Daniel said again. "We are not coming," I blurted out. The line went quiet. Then his tone changed. Wise, not sad, not disappointed, sharp. I felt Mark sit straighter beside me. "We are not coming," I repeated. Daniel lowered his voice. "Did someone talk to you?" My fingers tightened around the phone. "Talk to me about what?" Another pause. Then his soft voice returned, but it sounded fake now, like a smile painted on a wall. "You're making this weird, Mom. The kids are waiting. Lily made that peach pie you like." Lily was his wife, sweet on the outside, careful with her words, always hugging too long and smiling too big. I used to think she was just trying hard to be loved. Lately, I had begun to wonder if she watched people the way a person watches locked doors, always thinking about how to open them. "Tell the kids I'm sorry," I said. Then I ended the calls. For a moment the only sound was the hum of the old refrigerator sign outside the diner, and the distant hiss of a truck pulling off the highway. Mark turned toward me. "What is going on?" I closed my eyes. 3 months earlier Daniel had come to our house alone, no Lily, no children. He had looked tired, sweaty, restless. He asked for coffee but barely touched it. Then he told me he had made some bad investments. Then he said, it was not just him. Lily had debts too, big ones. Then he asked if I still kept the property papers in the home safe. At the time I laughed and said, "Why would you ask me that?" He laughed too, but only with his mouth, not his eyes. Now in that gas station parking lot, every piece came back to me like puzzle pieces slamming into place. The sudden reunion invitation. The way Daniel insisted we come early before the rest of the extended family. The way Lily had texted 3 times to make sure we were bringing the blue folder with old family records she claimed the kids wanted to see for a school project. The hidden truck. The waiting men. My son's face. I looked at Mark and finally said the words I had been too ashamed to say before. "I think Daniel wanted more than a reunion," I whispered. "I think he wanted us alone. I think he wanted the house papers, the savings information, maybe more. And I think those men were there to force us if we refused." Mark stared at me stunned. Then his face went pale too. Before he could answer, my phone buzzed again. Not Daniel this time. It was a text from Lily. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Come back now or Daniel will have no choice." My blood ran cold. Mark read it over my shoulder. Then at that exact moment, a black pickup truck turned off the highway and rolled slowly into the gas station parking lot. And when the driver's door opened, I saw one of the men from Daniel's driveway step out and look straight at us. Mark saw the man at the same time I did. He did not shout. He did not panic. He just reached for the car keys again and said in a low voice, "Get down." I slid low in my seat so fast my purse spilled open across the floorboard. Lip balm tissues, my reading glasses, a packet of peppermints, all of it scattered near my shoes. My heart hammered so loudly I could barely hear anything else. Through the side window, I saw boots crossing the cracked pavement of the gas station. Slow steps, calm steps. The kind that belong to someone who believes they already have control. Mark started the engine. The black pickup stopped 2 rows away, blocking the easiest path out. The man who stepped out was tall and broad in the shoulders. He wore a faded brown jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. From where I sat, I could not see all of his face, but I did not need to. I knew that body. I knew that walk. He was one of the two men hiding near Daniel's driveway. The diner door opened behind us. A waitress came out carrying a tray of empty glasses, saw the truck, saw our car and slowed down. The old woman with the flowers had stopped watering. Even the air seemed to freeze. The man lifted one hand like he was greeting a friend. Mark put the car in reverse. The man's smile disappeared. Then another truck pulled into the lot behind us. My breath caught so hard it hurt. "They boxed us in," I whispered. Mark's jaw tightened. "Not yet." He turned the wheel sharply, drove backward over the curb, and cut across a patch of dry grass behind the gas station. The car bounced so hard I hit my shoulder against the door. I grabbed the handle above the window, and held on. A trash can flew sideways in the mirror. Someone shouted. The black truck roared to life behind us. We shot past the diner and onto a smaller side road that ran behind the station. Gravel sprayed under the tires. My husband was not a man who drove wild. He obeyed speed limits. He used turn signals on empty roads. But in that moment he drove like a man who understood that our lives mattered more than rules. I twisted around in my seat and looked back. The truck was following us. "Call 911, Mark said. My fingers fumbled over the screen. I hit the wrong button twice before I finally made the call. The operator answered, calm and clear, and I tried to explain through my shaking breath that we were being followed near Miller County Road, that we had reason to believe men were trying to stop us, that our son's family reunion might have been a setup. Even to my own ears it sounded unbelievable. The operator told me to stay on the line and keep describing where we were. I did. I read street signs. I described the truck. I told her there were at least two men, maybe more. I did not mention Daniel's name at first. Saying it out loud felt like swallowing broken glass. The road curved through open fields and thin trees. The truck stayed close enough for me to see dust rolling off its hood. Then it sped up. "Mark," I said, my voice cracking. "They're getting closer." I knows. Ahead of us the side road split. One way led toward town. The other cut deeper through older farmland and empty storage buildings. Mark took the town road without hesitation. The truck followed. I pressed the phone closer to my ear. The operator said deputies were on the way, but the nearest patrol car was still several minutes out. Several minutes. It sounded like forever. Then my phone beeped with another call coming through. "Daniel." I ignored it. Then, "Lily." I ignored that too. Then Daniel again. Mark glanced at me for half a second, put it on speaker. I answered. "Mom, stop this right now," Daniel said, and the fake scared. I stared ahead at the road. "You sent men after us." "No," he snapped. "I sent friends to bring you back before you ruined everything." Everything. The word struck me like a slap. "What did you plan to do?" I asked. "Scare us, corner us, take our papers, take our money." "It was not supposed to be like this," he said. That hurt more than if he had shouted. Not because it made things better, but because it proved they were real. Mark kept driving, eyes fixed on the road. I said, "Then tell me exactly what it was supposed to be." Daniel's breathing came through the speaker hard and uneven. For a moment I heard voices in the background, Lily saying something sharply, a child laughing far away that almost made me cry. Children were there, our grandkids were there, near whatever ugly thing their parents had built. Then Daniel spoke again, lower this time. "You were just supposed to sign some things." My hand shook so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. "Sign what?" "Transfer papers, loan papers, temporary authority forms." It was only until I could fix the business mess. Mark let out one bitter breath through his nose, but said nothing. I whispered, "You invited us to a family reunion, so you could trap us into signing away our home." "It's not just the home," Daniel burst out. "You always do this. You make it sound crueler than it is. I'm drowning here." "And so you thought you could drown us too," I shot back. There was silence. Then he said the one thing I will never forget. "You were never going to lose anything if you cooperated." The truck behind us moved closer. My stomach turned. That word cooperated told me more than any confession could. It meant he already expected resistance. It meant the men were not there for decoration. It meant he had planned for fear. I said very quietly, "I don't know who you are right now." His voice cracked for the first time. "Mom, please, if you go to the police, I'm finished." I almost laughed, not because anything was funny, but because the sadness had become too big for normal feelings. "You should have thought of that before you set a trap for your own parents." Then I ended the calls. For a few seconds, neither Mark nor I spoke. The road widened ahead, and at last we reached the edge of a busier highway. 2 gas stations, a pharmacy, a feed store, a red traffic light, normal life. People moving through an ordinary afternoon, buying drinks, pumping gas, carrying groceries, never guessing that in one gray sedan a mother was realizing her son had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The black truck slowed when we reached the highway. Maybe the driver saw more people, maybe he worried about cameras, maybe he had gotten new orders, whatever the reason he dropped farther back. The 911 operator told us a sheriff's deputy wanted us to pull into the pharmacy lot and wait near the entrance where there were security cameras and witnesses. Mark did exactly that. We parked under bright light near the front doors. The truck rolled past once slowly, then kept going. I sagged into my seat. My whole body suddenly felt weak, like the fear had been holding me upright and now it was letting go. Mark turned to me. "We need every truth now, no protecting Daniel, no softening anything, understand?" I nodded, tears filling my eyes. "I knows." 2 sheriff's vehicles arrived within minutes. One deputy was a woman in her 40s with tired but kind eyes. The other was younger, serious, watchful. They listened carefully while we told them what happened. At first I felt embarrassed. Then the deputy read Lily's text and her expression changed. Then she listened to the call recording from 911 and wrote down every word Daniel had said. Then Mark told them about the trucks and the men. Finally, I forced myself to tell them the part I had hidden. 3 months earlier, Daniel had not only asked about the safe and the house papers, he had also asked strange questions about my will, about whether the property was in both my name and Mark, about whether my daughter Claire knew the exact value of our land. At the time I had pretended not to notice how odd that was. Then 2 weeks later I found a copy of our old property survey missing from the home office. I had blamed myself. I thought maybe I misplaced it. Now I knew better. The older deputy, whose name tag read Hensley, asked, "Did your son have access to your house?" "Yes," I said, "he used to. He still had an old key for emergencies. At least I thought it was for emergencies." She wrote that down. Then she asked, "Has he or his wife been under financial stress?" I laughed once. Dry and bitter, that's putting it gently. And slowly, piece by piece, the full shape of the problem began to show. Daniel had started a small construction company 2 years earlier with a business partner named Vince Parker, no relation to us. At first things went well. Then Daniel borrowed too much money trying to expand fast. He bought equipment he could not afford. He promised workers jobs that never fully came through. Lily had also been spending money like success was guaranteed: new furniture, private school deposits, designer things she liked to hide under the word investments. When the business started sinking, they did not slow down. They borrowed more. Then came the worst part. Not all the money came from the bank. Some came from men who did not wait politely for payment. I saw Hensley's pen stop for a second. "How do you know that?" I looked down at my hands. "Because I overheard him one night on the phone. He said, 'I'll get them to sign. Just give me until the reunion.' I told myself I must have misunderstood. I told myself no son would mean his own parents." Mark closed his eyes briefly. I felt sick with shame. "I should have told him," I whispered. "I should have told someone." Hensley's voice softened. "You are telling us now, but that did not erase the guilt. It only named it." The deputies asked if Daniel had ever been violent before. I said no, not exactly, but there had been flashes, broken dishes, a door slammed so hard the frame cracked, harsh words, that kind of anger that fills a room before a person even raises a hand. Hensley asked one more question. "Do you believe he meant to physically harm you today?" I looked at Mark. Then I told the truth. "I think he wanted us scared enough to obey, but once fear enters a plan, real harm is never far behind." That was enough for them. They said they would go to the property, check on the situation, identify the men, and make sure our grandchildren were safe. They advised us not to go home yet in case Daniel or the others came there. Instead, they suggested we stay somewhere secure for the night, maybe with trusted family. Qley, my daughter, lived 40 minutes away in the next town. She was practical, strong, and impossible to fool. Suddenly I wished I had called her the moment Daniel started acting strange weeks ago. We drove to Qley's house under police advice. One patrol car followed for part of the route, then peeled away once we were close. The whole drive there, I kept expecting my phone to ring again. It did not. That silence felt worse. Qley opened the door before we even knocked twice. She took one look at my face and pulled me inside without asking a question. Her husband, Ben, locked the deadbolt right away. Their teenage sons were told to go upstairs. Then Qley sat me at the kitchen table, made tea I barely tasted, and listened to everything. At first she looked stunned, then angry, then something even sadder. Hurt. I knew something was off with Daniel, she said quietly, but not this. Mark stood by the window, watching the street. Qley asked, "Did the police go to the house?" "Yes, and the kids. They said they'd check on them." Qley pressed both hands against her mouth, then lowered them. Those poor children. That was the thing about Qley. Even in anger she looked for the smallest innocent people in the room. The evening dragged on, every minute felt stretched, the sun went down, Ben turned on porch lights, Qley kept her phone in her hand, Mark paced. I sat at the table thinking about Daniel at 5 years old, Daniel at 10, Daniel at 18, Daniel on his wedding day, Daniel holding his first baby, and every memory kept crashing into the next one, until I could not separate the son I loved from the man who had set a trap. At around 8:30, Deputy Hensley called. I put her on speaker. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge under it. We went to the reunion address. Most of the guests had already been sent away. Your grandchildren are safe. They're with a neighbor right now while we sought out next steps. I nearly cried from relief. And Daniel? Mark asked. There was a pause. Your son is not at the house. The kitchen went still. What do you mean, not there? Qley asked. He left before we arrived, Hensley said. His wife is there. She claims this was a misunderstanding and says the men were only business associates helping with events set up. However, one of the trucks we were given has now been found abandoned near a service road. We are still looking for the driver and for Daniel. A cold feeling moved up my back. Then Hensley said the part that chilled me most. We also found several unsigned property transfer documents on the dining room table, along with copied records from your home file. Mrs. Carter, one of those papers includes a forged practice version of your signature. My mouth fell open. Qley made a sound of pure disgust. Mark's hand curled into a fist. But Hensley was not done. There's one more thing. A neighbor says your son left in a hurry after taking a locked metal box from the garage. Do you know what might be in that box? I stared at the table. Then the answer hit me so suddenly I felt dizzy. The family safe box. Not the one in our house. The old one. The one Daniel believed still held the original deed to the lake property. My father left me. And if Daniel had gone after that box, then he was not running away. He was still trying to finish what he started. I pushed my chair back so fast it scraped hard across Qley's kitchen floor. He thinks the deed is in that box, I said. Mark turned from the window. Are you sure? Yes, I said. He asked about it years ago when my father died. I told him the lake property papers used to be kept in a metal box in the garage before we moved most documents into the home safe. He must have remembered. Qley crossed her arms tightly over her chest. Used to be kept there. I nodded. The real deed is not in that box anymore. I moved it to the bank almost 6 years ago. But Daniel doesn't know that. For one tiny second, relief passed through the room like a weak breeze. Then it disappeared. Because even if the real deed was safe, Daniel had still stolen the box, forged my signature, and tried to trap us with strange men waiting near his house. The problem was far bigger than one paper. Deputy Hensley's voice came through the phone again. That helps us. Do not leave the house tonight. Lock everything. We may need you to come in tomorrow morning to make full statements and review the documents we recovered. We'll be here, Mark said. After the call ended, silence settled over the kitchen. Qley sat down slowly across from me. Her face looked pale under the soft light above the table. Mom, she said very gently, I need to ask something and I'm not trying to hurt you. Did you ever give Daniel reason to think he could do this and you would still protect him? The question stung because it was fair. I looked at my hands for a long moment. Yes, I said. Mark let out a quiet breath, not angry, just sad. It was true. I had protected Daniel too many times. Not from scraped knees or schoolyard problems, that was normal. I mean the bigger times, the dangerous times. The times when love stopped being help and started becoming cover. When Daniel was 15 and got caught stealing headphones from a store, I told the manager he was grieving his grandfather and not thinking clearly. When he was 19 and borrowed money from his sister and never paid it back, I told Qley to let it go because her brother was finding his way. When he was 27 and shouted at Mark during Thanksgiving dinner over a loan, I made dessert, changed the subject, and acted like the room had not just cracked down the middle. Each time I told myself I was keeping the family together. Now I saw what I had really done. I had taught my son that messes could be softened, explained away, hidden under the tablecloth until company left. Qley did not say I told you so, she did not need to. The truth was already in the room. Ben cleared his throat. We need a plan for tonight. That pulled us back to the present. He checked the locks again. Qley closed the curtains. Mark called the bank's emergency line to make sure our safe deposit access would be flagged if anyone tried anything strange. I called our neighbor Mrs. Grayson and asked her to watch our house and not open the door to anyone, especially Daniel or Lily. She sounded shocked, but she promised. Around 9:30, Qley's sons came downstairs in their socks and asked if Grandma was okay. I smiled and said yes, in that way adults do when they are trying not to pour their fear into children. They hugged me anyway. The older one, Mason, whispered, "Mom says Uncle Daniel did something bad." I touched his cheek. He made some very wrong choices. Mason nodded with the serious face of a boy trying to understand grown-up trouble. "Are you safe here?" "Yes," I said, and this time I meant it for the moment. He seemed satisfied and went back upstairs. That almost broke me. Children asked the cleanest questions. "Are you safe? Are you okay? Did someone do something bad?" Adults buried the same questions under layers of pride and excuses. Later, after everyone settled down, Qley made up the guest room for me and Mark, but sleep did not come. I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan turning slow circles in the dark. Beside me, Mark's breathing stayed uneven. I knew he was awake too. After a while he said quietly, "I keep replaying the road." "So do I. If you had not seen that truck." I turned onto my side. "I know." The rest of the sentence stayed unspoken. If I had not looked up at the right time, if I had not trusted the cold feeling in my chest, if Mark had brushed me off and kept driving, we might have pulled right into Daniel's driveway, stepped out smiling, carrying dessert and folding chairs, walking straight into whatever waited there. Mark's hand found mine in the dark. "You saved us," he said. I did not feel brave. I felt old and shaken and heart-sick. "I should have spoken sooner," I whispered. "Yes," he said. Then after a pause, "But you spoke when it mattered most." That kindness made tears slide quietly into my hair. Sometime after midnight my phone lit up on the bedside table. "Daniel," my whole body tightened. Mark pushed himself up on one elbow. "You don't have to answer." But I did. I stepped into the hallway, so I would not wake anyone, and pressed the phone to my ear. For a second all I heard was breathing and a faint engine sound, as if he was sitting in a parked car. Then he said, "Mom." No anger this time. No fake sweetness. Just a tired, frayed voice. "Where are you?" I asked. "That doesn't matter. It matters to the police." He gave a small, humorless laugh. "So, you really did it. You chased us with men in trucks," I said. "What did you think would happen?" His breathing turned rougher. It was not supposed to go that far. There it was again, that useless sentence, "not supposed to," as if a trap with forged papers and hired pressure could somehow stay neat and harmless. I leaned against the wall. "Then tell me plainly, no more half-talk. Who are these men?" For a long moment I thought he would hang up. Instead he said, "A lender. One lender needs 2 trucks and hidden men in trees." "It started with one lender," he snapped, then lowered his voice. "Then the debt was sold, then more got added. Fees, deadlines, threats. Vince disappeared, Lily panicked, I panicked. That name again. Vince, his business partner. Where is Vince now?" "I don't know," he said. And for the first time I believed him. I closed my eyes. "How much do you owe?" He was silent here. "Daniels? 280,000, he muttered. My knees nearly gave out. I had expected a mess, not that size of a mess. "How?" His voice rose sharply. "Because I was trying to build something. Because every time I got close something went wrong. Equipment got delayed, contracts fell through, workers wanted paying. Lily kept saying one good deal would fix everything. Vince kept saying borrow now, pay later. It kept stacking up. And instead of telling us the truth, you decided to steal from us." "I was not stealing," he shouted, then quickly lowered his voice. "I was going to put everything back once the next project hit." I almost laughed again from disbelief. It was the laugh of someone standing in the ruins of trust. "You forged my name." It was practice. I wasn't going to use that one. "Practice for what?" I asked coldly. "For becoming the kind of man who signs his mother away." He said nothing. Then I asked the question that had been sitting like stone in my chest. Did you know those men might hurt us? His answer did not come right away. That told me enough before he even spoke. I told them not to scare you too much, he said finally. Too much? I slid down until I was sitting on the hallway floor. That phrase settled over me like ice water. Not to scare us too much. As if fear was a knob he could turn carefully. As if danger could be measured and still be moral. Mom, he said. And now his voice sounded shaky. I know how bad this sounds. It sounds exactly like what it is. I was desperate. So were we supposed to be desperate too? No ice. His voice broke off. For a second I heard another voice near him. A woman's voice, Lily's, sharp and fast, then a car door shut. I sat up straighter. Is Lily with you? He did not answer. Daniel, are the children with you? Knows. At least that. Then he said something that made my stomach drop again. She's blaming me for all of it now. Of course she was. I had seen Lily's kind before, smiling in daylight, shifting blame in the dark, but I also knew this was not all hers. No one forced Daniel to invite us to that house. No one forced him to keep going after seeing our car turn away. Those were his choices. What do you want from me? I asked. His next words came out small, almost boyish. Tell them I didn't mean to hurt you. I stared into the dark hallway. For 1 weak, foolish second, I almost heard not the grown man but the little boy who once cried over a baby bird. Then I remembered the trucks, the forged papers, the text from Lily, the phrase cooperate, the phrase not too much, and something inside me hardened in a clean, painful way. No, I said. He inhaled sharply. You need to tell the truth yourself, I continued. And you need to turn yourself in, moms. No. Listen to me now. This is the part where your life can still become honest, not easy, not pleasant, not clean, but honest. You go to the police, you tell them everything, every name, every paper, every lie, or you keep running and become exactly the man you are pretending not to be. For a moment there was only breathing. Then he whispered, you always loved Claire more. The words hit me so suddenly, I almost dropped the phone. It was such an old wound, such an old excuse, and hearing it now in the middle of all this wreckage made something click into place. This was part of his story about himself. Maybe not the whole story, but part of it. The belief that someone else was favored, someone else was trusted more, someone else had it easier, and therefore the rules that held other people in place did not need to hold him. Daniel, I said quietly. That is a lie you have fed yourself for years. He did not speak, Claire. Claire took responsibility. Claire told the truth even when it made her look bad. Claire accepted no when no was the answer. You wanted rescue without honesty. You wanted help without humility. That is not the same thing. A long silence followed. Then he said, if I turn myself in, they'll tear this family apart. No, I said. You already did that. And I ended the calls. I sat on the hallway floor for a long time after that, holding the phone in my lap and staring at nothing. Finally, Mark opened the bedroom door, and found me there. He sat beside me without a word. I leaned into him and cried quietly, not with loud sobs, just a deep, tired grief that felt like it had no bottom. By morning, I had no tears left. Claire made coffee. Ben drove the boys to school and told them there was a family emergency. Mark shaved with a hand that trembled only once. I changed into a plain blue blouse and gray slacks, the kind of clothes that make a woman feel she can get through hard places with her back straight. At the sheriff's office, everything became more official, more solid, more painful. We reviewed copies of the forged papers. There were temporary power transfers, property authorizations, emergency loan collateral forms, and one ugly draft document that would have allowed Daniel control over major family assets if signed during what was worded as a short-term assistance period. Every page made me colder. Deputy Hensley sat with us while we read. This set was prepared in a rush, she said. There are legal flaws, some wording is sloppy, but with pressure, confusion, and enough signatures gathered in one sitting, real damage could have been done before anyone sorted it out. Mark's face turned dark with anger. I just kept turning pages. Then we got to the sheet with my forged practice signature. There it was. My name stared at it so long the letters stopped looking like mine. Hensley asked if I recognized the handwriting in the notes around the page. I did. Some of it was Daniel's, some of it I was almost sure was Lily's. And then came the part I had not expected. Hensley slid over a photo taken from Daniel's dining room table before evidence was collected. In the corner of the picture, half covered by a legal pad, was a yellow note card. My breath caught. I knew that card. It was one of mine. I used yellow cards for recipes, reminders, birthdays, little household notes. This one had been in my kitchen drawer a month ago. "Can I see that closer?" I asked. Hensley zoomed in. The note read, "Bring blue folder. Ask about bank access. Keep marked, calm. If needed, separate them." The room seemed to tilt. Mark leaned in hard. "Separate them." My mouth went dry. That was not just about papers anymore. That was a plan for control, for division, for making one parent easier to pressure without the other in the room. I pressed my fingertips to my lips. Hensley said gently, "Mrs. Carter, we need to know if there's anything else in your home or family history that points to premeditation, anything unusual, missing copy, discussed." And suddenly I remembered one more thing. 2 weeks ago, Lily had taken me aside during my granddaughter Emma's dance recital. She smiled and chatted about costumes and shoes and traffic. Then, so casually it almost slipped past me, she asked whether Mark still kept his heart medicine in his coat pocket when he traveled. At the time I thought it was concern. Now the blood drained from my face. Mark looked at me. "What?" I turned slowly toward him. "Lily asked me about your medicine." The silence that followed was terrible. Hensley's expression sharpened immediately. "What exactly did she ask?" I repeated it word for word. The deputy beside her straightened in his chair. Mark's face lost color. "Could they have been planning to separate me from my meds?" he asked. I stared at the yellow card again. "Keep Mark calm, if needed, separate them." My heart pounded. Maybe it meant only keep him talking. Maybe it meant lead him away. Maybe it meant create confusion. But once people start planning fear, every innocent explanation begins to die. Hensley stood. "I need to make another call." She stepped out with the younger deputy, leaving me and Mark in a small interview room that suddenly felt too tight. Mark looked at me with quiet horror, heavy. I reached for his hand across the table. "You're here, you're safe. For now," he said. That was the truth of it, for now. A few minutes later, Hensley returned. But her face told me the day was about to get worse before she even sat down. "We've located Lily," she said, "but not under normal circumstances." My stomach dropped. "She was found at a motel 20 miles east of town," Hensley continued. "She was trying to leave with cash, jewelry, and a folder of copied family financial records, and she was not alone." I gripped Mark's hand harder. "Who was with her?" he asked. Hensley looked directly at me. "Your grandson, Tyler." For a second, I truly thought I had heard her wrong. "Tyler?" I repeated. Deputy Hensley nodded once. "Yes." My chest tightened so fast I had to press a hand against it. Tyler was Daniel and Lily's oldest child, 14 years old, all elbows and sneakers and half-finished jokes. He still forgot where he put his backpack. He still asked for extra syrup on pancakes. He was old enough to understand a lot, but not old enough to be dragged into adult schemes. Mark's voice came out low and rough. "Was he hurt?" "No," Hensley said quickly. "He's physically fine, shaken but fine." I closed my eyes in relief for 1 second, but the relief did not last. Why was he with Lily at a motel carrying stolen records and valuables while Daniel was still missing? Hensley pulled out a chair and sat down again. "We are trying to sort out whether Tyler went willingly, whether he understood what was happening, and whether Lily was using him as cover. Right now he is with a juvenile support officer and a family services counselor. He keeps asking for his grandmother." That finished me. Not the forged papers, not even the motel, that sentence. "He keeps asking for his grandmother." I put both hands over my face and breathed in slowly, so I would not fall apart in front of everyone. Mark rubbed my back once steady and warm. Claire, who had come with us to the station and was sitting against the wall, whispered, "Oh no, oh Tyler." Hensley let the silence sit for a moment, then said, "There's something else you need to know. Tyler told the counselor he heard his parents arguing last night after your car turned around. He says Lily wanted to leave immediately with the documents and whatever they could carry. Daniel wanted to keep looking for the metal box because he thought it contained the original lake deed. They split up. Lily took Tyler and left. Daniel kept driving. That picture formed in my mind too easily. Panic breaking opened their fake little plan. Blame flying back and forth, and in the middle of it a child caught like a suitcase being pulled from one car to another. Claire stood and began packing. She took her own son while running from the police. That alone tells me what kind of mother she is. I did not answer. I was thinking about Tyler's face. I was thinking about the younger children too, Emma and Noah. waiting with some neighbor while their home turned into a police scene and their parents turned into strangers. Then another thought hit me. Why Tyler? I asked. Hensley's eyes flicked to her notes. According to him, Lily told him they were taking a little trip because the family was having drama and she needed help carrying bags. He says she promised him fast food and told him not to ask questions. Mark muttered something under his breath that I could not fully catch, but I knew it was anger. I looked at Hensley. Can I see him? She hesitated, then nodded. Likely yes after we finish here, but before that we need to know whether Tyler may have seen or heard anything important. I sat up straighter and forced myself back into the room. Ask me. She turned a page. Has Tyler ever been used before to pass messages, carry papers, unlock doors, things like that? At first I wanted to say no. Then I remembered little moments that had seemed harmless at the time. Tyler arriving with envelopes. Tyler being sent into our house ahead of everyone else to grab Grandma's pie dish from the kitchen. Tyler once asking in a weirdly rehearsed way whether Grandpa still kept his spare keys in the ceramic jar by the laundry room. The shame returned hotter this time. Yes, I said quietly. Maybe I did not see it clearly then, but yes. Qley stopped packing and looked at me with sad understanding. She was not blaming me. That almost hurt more. Hensley wrote that down. You are helping more than you realize. Maybe, but it did not feel like help. It felt like walking backward through my own mistakes and naming them one by one. We spent another hour with statements and timelines. The station felt cold, too bright, full of footsteps and ringing phones and doors opening and closing. At some point someone brought paper cups of coffee. I took one and forgot to drink it. Finally, near noon, Hensley led us to a smaller room with softer chairs and a box of tissues on the table. A counselor stood by the window and sitting beside her, shoulders hunched, was Tyler. The moment he saw me, he burst into tears. I was across the room before I even knew I had moved. He stood and crashed into me, all lanky arms and fear and child smell, and held on so tightly my heart ached. I wrapped both arms around him and said the only thing that mattered first. You are safe, you are safe, you are safe. He cried into my blouse like he had when he was 6 and scraped his knee at the park. Mark put a hand on Tyler's shoulder. Hey buddy. Tyler looked up at him with red eyes. I didn't know, Grandpa. I promise I didn't know what they were doing. I know, Mark said at once. We sat together. The counselor asked gentle questions. Tyler answered in broken pieces at first. Then more clearly as he calmed down. He said the reunion had been real on the surface, food had been set out, some relatives were invited for later, but Lily told him and Emma that Grandma and Grandpa were coming early because we need to talk about grown-up family business. Daniel had been angry all morning, he kept checking his phone. 2 men came to the garage before guests arrived. Tyler heard one of them say, if they sign we're done by lunch. My stomach sank, then Tyler said something that made Qley cover her mouth. I heard Dad say, just keep Mom busy and keep Grandpa outside if he gets difficult. There it was again. The separation, the planning, the calm little steps of betrayal. The counselor asked Tyler if he knew what papers were involved. He nodded weakly. I saw Grandma's name on a bunch. Mom said it was just for a loan and Grandpa was too stubborn to understand grown-up business. My throat hurt. Then Tyler told us about the argument. After we turned around and left, Daniel threw a chair on the porch. Lily screamed that he had ruined everything by letting us get too close to the hidden truck. One of the men shouted that time was up and somebody else would collect what was owed if Daniel could not. That's somebody else. Even now, we still did not know who sat above all this mess. Tyler said Daniel drove off looking wild and angry, and Lily rushed through the house throwing jewelry, cash and folders into bags. When Tyler asked what was happening, she told him they were going on an adventure and that he was the strong one she could count on. That phrase made my hands clench. Children want to be useful. That is why selfish adults use them so easily. At that point, the counselor paused the questioning because Tyler was getting overwhelmed. I held his hand while he drank water. He would not let go of my fingers. Then he looked at me and asked the question I had dreaded. Is Dad going to jail? Nobody spoke for a second. You can lie to children to protect their bedtime. You should not lie to them when their world is already falling down. I stroked his hair back from his forehead. Dad did something very wrong. The police have to deal with that. Tyler's chin trembled. But he's still my dad. I know, I said softly. And loving someone does not make what they did okay. That made him cry again, but quieter this time, with the sad understanding of someone learning one of life's worst lessons too early. Before we left the room, I bent down and looked him right in the eye. None of this is your fault. Not one bit, do you hear me? He nodded. Your job now is to tell the truth. That is how good people begin cleaning up bad messes." He whispered, "Okay." And I think that was the moment I understood what my revenge truly needed to be. Not yelling, not spite, not ruining people for the joy of it. Truth, truth in bright rooms. Truth on paper. Truth in front of judges and children and family members who had been fed lies. Truth that could not be sweet-talked away. That would be my revenge. The afternoon moved fast after that. Claire took Tyler home with her so he could be somewhere safe and quiet with people who loved him. Family services began arrangements for Emma and Noah too. Lily was being held for questioning. Daniel was still nowhere. By 3 o'clock I was exhausted down to my bones. But I refused to go home. Instead I told Mark and Claire I wanted one thing before the day ended. "I want every lock changed," I said. Mark nodded immediately. "And I want the whole family to know why." Claire blinked. "You want to tell everyone today?" "Yes." Both of them stared at me. A week ago I would have begged for privacy. I would have said, "Let's keep this quiet. Let's protect the grandchildren. Let's avoid scandal. Let's give Daniel room to explain." But secrecy had already done enough damage. "No more hiding," I said. "No more protecting lies with silence." Mark's face softened, and under all the pain I saw a little pride there. So that evening, with the sheriff's office aware, and our lawyer already contacted, we gathered what immediate family we could by phone and video call. My sister Ruth, my cousin Janet, Daniel's younger brother-in-law, Claire's husband beside her, a few others. No gossip chain, no dramatic performance. Just the people who needed truth before 4 stories reached them first. I sat at Claire's dining table with my back straight and told them. I told them there had been a trap disguised as a reunion. I told them forged papers were found. I told them Daniel had involved outside men connected to debt. I told them Lily had fled with stolen records, and Tyler in tow. I said the grandchildren were safe. I said we were cooperating with police. I said there would be no more pretending. The reactions came in waves. Shock, tears, questions. One relative kept saying, "No, no, no," under her breath. Another asked if I was absolutely sure. Claire answered that one before I could. Ruth cried openly, and then apologized for crying, which made me want to cry too. Janet asked the practical questions about custody school, and whether the children would need overnight bags from the house. Not one person defended Daniel once they heard the facts plainly. That mattered. Because lies grow strongest in confusion, the more clearly I spoke, the smaller his false story became. At one point cousin Janet said, "Evelyn, you sound stronger than I've heard you in years." I looked down at my folded hands. "I had to become stronger," I said. "The old version of me helped create this by swallowing too much." Nobody argued with that. When the calls ended, the house was quiet again. Claire reheated soup that none of us really wanted, but we ate because human beings still need dinner even when their family is falling apart. Tyler sat at the far end of the table, eyes swollen, spoon moving slowly. Emma and Noah had arrived by then too, sleepy and confused, clinging close to Claire. The little ones did not know the full truth yet. They only knew Mom and Dad were in trouble, and Grandma kept kissing their heads too often. After dinner I tucked Emma into the guest bed beside Noah, while Claire handled Tyler in Mason's room. Emma looked up at me with those wide-cutter eyes and asked, "Did I do something bad at the reunion?" The question nearly split me open. "No, sweetheart." "Then why did everybody leave?" I smoothed her hair because some adults made bad choices, not you. She seemed to accept that in the way tired children do. "Will Mommy come tomorrow?" I kissed her for it because I could not promise what I did not know. "Tomorrow you will be with people who love you." When I stepped out of the room I had to lean against the hallway wall for a second and gather myself. This was the true cost, not papers, not money, not even legal danger. Children lying in borrowed beds asking what they did wrong. That night after the kids were asleep and the house had settled, Mark and I sat on the back porch under Claire's yellow porch light. The air was cool. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked once and fell silent. Mark held a mug of tea gone cold between his hands. "You were right," he said quietly. "About what?" Silence. He looked out into the yard. "We both used it. You more than me maybe, but I did too. I let things slide because I thought peace was the same as healing." I nodded. "So did I." He turned to me. "Not anymore." "Not anymore," I agreed. This is the kind of moment in a story where I would tell you to breathe and think about your own life for a second, because families do not break all at once. They crack little by little when people excuse what should be faced, And sometimes the kindest thing you can do is tell the truth early before truth comes crashing through the front door. If this part touches your heart, hold on to that thought because mine still had one more hard test waiting. At around 10:15, Deputy Hensley called again. I answered at once. Her voice was clipped and urgent. "Mrs. Carter, we've located Daniel's truck." I stood up from the porch chair so fast it tipped backward. "Where?" "Near the old Carter Lake property access road." Every bit of air seemed to leave my body. The lake property, my father's land, the place with the small cabin, the tools shed, the fishing dock, and the old storm cellar under the hill. A place Daniel knew from childhood, a place quiet enough to hide in, a place tied directly to the deed he thought he needed. Mark was on his feet now too, reading my face before I even put the phone on speaker. Hensley continued. "There are signs someone is there, possibly armed, and we found something else at the scene." My voice came out thin. "What?" "A handwritten note left under the truck windshield. It appears to be for you." I gripped the phone harder. "What does it say?" There was a brief pause and then she read it. "Come alone, Mom, you owe me one last conversation." And under that, in Daniel's writing, were 6 words that made my blood run cold. "Bring the real deed or else." I stared into the dark yard so hard that for a second I could not see anything at all. "Bring the real deed or else." Mark took the phone from my hand and put it on speaker. "Deputy. What does or else mean? Did he say who he's threatening?" "We don't know yet," Hensley said. "That's why I need you both to stay where you are. Do not go to the lake property. We are sending officers there now." But even before she finished, I knew exactly what Daniel was doing. He was reaching for the oldest trick in a broken family. Fear, make the mother panic, make her think only she can fix it. Make her rush in alone carrying the thing he wants. And for the first time in my life, I was not going to let my son use my love that way. "We are not coming," I said firmly. "And I'm not bringing anything." "That is the right choice," Hensley said. "Stay available. We may need to ask about the property layout." After the call ended, Mark picked up the porch chair and set it back on its legs. "You're shaking," he said. "I knows. Sit down." "I don't want to sit down." I wrapped my arms around myself and looked toward the dark line of trees beyond Claire's backyard. "He used to fish there with your father," I said softly. "He used to beg for one more hour on the dock every summer." Mark's face tightened. "That boy is gone right now." I swallowed hard, maybe. But the man he became still knows exactly which memories to use against me. Claire stepped out onto the porch, having heard enough from the kitchen to understand something bad had happened again. When I explained, her eyes flashed with anger. "He wants you scared and alone," she said, "so we do the opposite." And that is what we did. We went inside. We spread an old county map on Claire's dining table. I marked the dirt access road, the cabin, the dock, the storm cellar, and the side trail that cut through the trees toward the back of the property. Mark told them where the gate tended to stick. I told them where Daniel would likely hide if he wanted to watch the road before being seen. Deputy Hensley stayed on the phone while other officers moved in. Every minute felt like 10. Nobody touched the tea Claire made. Tyler stood in the hallway in his socks, face pale, listening even though he was supposed to be in bed. I finally brought him into the kitchen and sat him beside me, because pretending children do not hear things does not stop them from hearing. At last Hensley called back. Her voice was lower, now controlled. "They found Daniel in the cabin." My fingers tightened around the edge of the table. "Is anyone hurt?" "No one is hurt. He had no firearm. He did have the metal box, your copied records, and several papers spread across the table. He also had your husband's old pill organizer." Mark went still. I closed my eyes so it had been real. The questions about his medicine, the note about keeping him calm, separating us. Maybe Daniel planned only to control him, maybe not. But once that line gets crossed, safety stops being guesswork and becomes action. "He's in custody?" Claire asked. "Yes," said Hensley. "He surrendered after a short standoff. He was agitated, but he gave up." The whole room seemed to exhale at once. Then Tyler asked in a tiny voice, "Did Dad say anything?" Hensley was quiet for a second before answering. "Yes. He said he wanted to talk to his mother." Tyler looked down. I took the phone back. "I'll come tomorrow." Mark turned sharply, heavy. "I said tomorrow," I replied, meeting his eyes, "at the station in daylight with the truth sitting between us." Hensley agreed that would be safer and wiser. We ended the call. Then the house fell into that strange hush that comes after danger changes shape. The chase was over, the hiding was over, But pain was not over. The hardest part had simply become different. That night I slept for barely 2 hours. In the morning I dressed carefully, not because clothes could save me, but because dignity matters when your heart is trying to fall apart. I wore a cream blouse, a navy skirt, low shoes, and my late mother's small pearl earrings. I wanted to look like myself, solid and plain and impossible to bully. At the station they took me to a private room. Daniel was already there with his wrists free now, but his future no longer free at all. He looked terrible. His hair was messy, his eyes red, his face gray with exhaustion. For one flicker of a second I saw the little boy who used to sleep with one sock on and one off. Then I remembered the trucks, the forged name, the note, the pill organizer. I sat down across from him. He whispered, "Mom." "No," I said quietly. "You listen first." He blinked, surprised. Maybe he still thought I would come in crying and begging for an explanation that could soften this. But that mother had stayed back on the road when she told her husband to turn the car around. "You set a trap for us," I said. "You invited your parents to a family reunion so strangers could pressure us into signing over control of our home, land, and accounts. You let your wife pull your children into the mess. You copied private records from our house. You forged my signature. You chased us when we left. You took your father's medicine, and you tried to scare me into bringing the real deed to the lake property. Every one of those choices was yours." Tears filled his eyes almost at once. I was desperate. "I know you were desperate," I said. "Desperate as a feeling this was a plan." He flinched like the words hit him. Then he started talking fast, almost tripping over himself. Vince had disappeared after using Daniel's company to hide debt. The lender was worse than Daniel first knew. Lily kept insisting they could save everything if they just got temporary control of family property to secure another loan. Daniel said he never meant for violence, that the men were only supposed to scare us into signing, not hurt us. He said he panicked when we drove away. He said Lily pushed him. He said he hated speak until the excuses ran out and only bare words remained. Then I said the thing he needed to hear most. "You did not ruin everything in one day. You built this one excuse at a time." He looked at me with such raw misery that I almost looked away, almost. "But here is the part that still belongs to you," I continued. "You can tell the full truth, not pieces, not blame. All of it, every debt, every paper, every person involved." He stared at the table. "Would that change anything?" "Yes," I said. "It would change what kind of man you are from this day forward." For a long time he said nothing. Then very quietly he nodded. And he did tell the truth. Not all at once and not proudly, but fully enough for the police and lawyer to connect the whole chain. Vince had introduced Daniel to a private lender after the business started failing. Lily knew more than she admitted and helped organize the reunion trap because she believed family assets could save them and that we would get over it later. The hidden men were there to intimidate, block exits, and keep us from leaving until the papers were signed. The yellow note was written partly by Lily, partly by Daniel. The question about Mark's medicine was not supposed to kill him. Daniel insisted only to make him easier to pressure if he got stressed. Hearing that still made me sick, but at least it was said plainly. No more shadows. Lily was charged too. The lenders were investigated. Vince was later found in another state, and brought back to answer for fraud. It took months for the legal process to grind forward, but it did. And meet. My revenge was not loud. It was not cruel. It was clean. I refused to lie for them. I gave every statement. I turned over every document. I stopped telling myself family shame was worse than family truth. I worked with Claire and Mark to protect the grandchildren. Temporary custody arrangements were made. The children stayed mostly with Claire and Ben while the courts sorted everything out. Tyler went to counseling. Emma stopped waking up crying after a few weeks. Noah began smiling again when Mark took him fishing at a safe little pond near Claire's house. One Sunday afternoon, a month after the arrest, Tyler sat beside me on Claire's porch swing and asked, "Grandma, do you still love Dad?" It was the kind of question only a child would ask so directly. "Yes," I said after a moment, "but love is not the same as trust." He thought about that. "Will you ever trust him again?" I looked out at the yard where Emma and Noah were chasing bubbles. "Not in the old way," I said. "Trust has to be rebuilt with truth, and truth takes time." Tyler nodded slowly. "I think I get that." He did get it too young, but he got it. Months later, after court dates and long meetings and difficult paperwork, Daniel wrote me a letter from county jail before sentencing. He did not ask me to save him. That was new. He did not blame he took was really a theft from the future, his own and ours. He wrote that hearing Tyler cry at the station broke something in him that should have broken years earlier. He wrote that he was sorry. I cried when I read it. Not because it fixed everything. It did not. But because it was the first honest thing he had given me in a very long time. I wrote back only once before sentencing. I told him I hoped he would spend the next years becoming a man his children could one day safely know again. I told him sorry matters only when it grows legs and walks into changed behavior. I told him I would not rescue him from consequences, but I would pray that consequences finally taught him what comfort never had. He was sentenced. Lily was sentenced too, though differently because of her role. Vince got his own separate punishment. The business collapsed completely. The house Daniel and Lily lived in was lost. It was ugly, and sad, and very public. But the children were safe. That is what mattered most. As for me and Mark, we changed the locks, changed the alarm system, moved more records to the bank, and changed something even bigger in the family. We changed the rules. No more secret loans, no more access just in case. No more swallowing strange behavior to keep dinner peaceful. Claire said the family finally felt honest even in grief. She was right. A year later, we held a real family reunion. Not at Daniel's old house, not anywhere tied to lies. We held it at Claire's place in the backyard, under strings of warm lights. There were folding chairs, potato salad, sticky lemonade for the kids, and music from a little speaker that kept cutting out whenever Noah danced too close to it. Tyler grilled burgers beside Mark. Emma helped me set napkins on the table. Noah ran in circles until he fell down laughing. Nobody hid in trees. Nobody waited with trucks. Nobody asked for signatures. At sunset, Tyler came and stood beside me while everyone else talked and laughed. "This feels different," he said. "It is different. Better." I looked around at the people I still had, the ones who chose truth even when it hurt. "Yes," I said, "much better." And that is where I will leave you with one simple lesson I learned too late but not too late to pass on. Trust your instincts. Speak when something feels wrong. Silence can protect peace for an hour, but truth can protect a life for years. The day I told my husband to turn the car around, I thought I was only escaping a trap. I did not know I was also turning my whole family away from one kind of future, and forcing us toward a harder but cleaner one. And I never saw my son the same way again. But because I finally chose truth over silence, I was still here to see my grandchildren laugh. Thanks for watching. Take care. Good luck.